Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Brave, featuring the voices of Kelly MacDonald, Billy Connolly, Emma Thompson, Julie Walters, Robbie Coltrane, Kevin McKidd, and Craig Ferguson, directed by Mark Andrews and Brenda Chapman. Now, I remember going to movie theaters for this, and was I impressed with it? I mean, it was good at the time, but is it worth owning on Blu ray? Is the question. Let's get into this movie. As a little girl, Merida wants to be an arrow shooter because her father Fergus, voiced by Billy Connolly, is one, as her mother Eleanor, voiced by Emma Thompson, tells her to live like a lady while she searches for an arrow. She sees a whisper as or no, a wisp, I meant a wisp, which is a piece of magic, and as she comes back to camp, Merida screams of a bear coming towards them, and Fergus and his warriors fight the bear as we get the title of the movie on the screen, which is a good opening because bears can really scare the bejesus out of you. Excuse me for saying that, but it's true. As the princess, Merida, voiced by Kelly MacDonald, hates being the princess as she does things she doesn't want to do for her mother and wants to change her fate and wants to be a brave warrior and shoots arrows behind her mother's back one day a week, as the movie does a fine job at telling a story of a princess as she doesn't want to be a princess any further than that. And Merida's arc is good, as I do like the character, as there were times it was hard to understand what she was saying, as she has three brothers who can sneak by someone and get away with murder, as Merida can't get away with murder, which is a piece of dialogue she said earlier in the film. As that was kind of funny. In an interesting way, Eleanor tells Merida that she'll marry a man to become a queen, as Merida wants to be on her own, while Merida and with her parents practice talking about it, as the movie's message is about listening to each other and do what they want to do with their lives, which will be a message repeated again and again, kind of, which will get repetitive after a while throughout the movie. Eleanor puts Merida in a dress that she can barely fit in, while some princes, not princesses, but princess, wants to fight for Merida's hand. And I do like Fergus, as he's the best character for comic relief reasons. But I don't know if I like Eleanor, as she appears to be stubborn about making her daughter to marry a prince, which is a typical silly medieval plot in the animation. But don't get me wrong, the animation makes the movie look very pretty, but I can't help but think I've seen this plot in a Disney film before all the time. What makes this special? It's a Pixar film, as they're pretty successful with their films, but unfortunately it doesn't change how predictable this movie can be, in my opinion. The princes from different areas shoot arrows at a target. What one does hit a target, but Merida shoots at one target after another for her own hand and wishes Eleanor to be a beast, as she throws Merida's bow in the fire without realizing she's burning it, and Merida runs off on her own. This is Pixar's first princess movie, but I'm starting to think, how many princess movies have I seen from Disney? As I can name a few examples like Beauty and the Beast, Cinderella, Snow White, and after this was Frozen. As they're all successful, most of them are good, but the concept gets really old really fast, in my opinion. Even like The Little Mermaid, not one of my favorite Disney films, might I add. Sorry to disappoint. Merida stops by a witch's building with a talking crow as she buys everything in the store. She runs to trade with her necklace and a spell of Eleanor to become a beast. And come on, how many times have I seen that in a family film? It gets cliche rather too quickly. The witch makes a spell of a pill, and I want to say, as Merida puts in her tea and cake, I would say, while Fergus entertains the guests, Eleanor doesn't feel very well and turns into a bear, and as Merida freaks out, as does Eleanor, while she's the bear, as it's something I believe I've seen before, as it's not original. But don't get me wrong, I don't dislike this movie. I think it's fine, as it's not my favorite Pixar film, nor is it one of the best from the studio, as I've seen this before, and it gets cliche and old really fast. Merida gets away with Eleanor, the bear, and the boys eat the cake and the part with the potion in turn into bears, as the jokes are clever and the animation is pretty. As I like Merida, Fergus, and the three boys, but those are the only characters I think I would really enjoy. But other than that, Eleanor I just don't really like as well, as the other characters just come off not very interesting, as it's kind of hard to understand their dialogue. Merida and Eleanor go to the witch's shop, and she won't be back until the spring, as she's off to the Wicker Man fair, and the curse will be permanent in 2 days. Yeah, that's right. From that evening, which is familiar. The next day comes as Merida and Eleanor have poisonous berries. Well, they don't get poisoned, thank goodness for that, because she throws them out really fast. And by she, I mean Eleanor. Yeah, that's right. But Merida shows breakfast this fish as she tries it for the first time and develop a mother-daughter relationship, as Eleanor briefly turns into a menacing bear, and they find a wisp as Eleanor goes after it until they sense danger coming in their direction, and the wisps show them which way to go to find the witch, and fall into a hole where they find a prince who turned into a bear, like in the story Eleanor told Merida as a kid. And a menacing real bear almost attacks Merida, but luckily she escapes, and that piece of action was, I would say, mildly entertaining at best. The action's mildly entertaining. But yeah, I'm having an okay time with this. Merida and Eleanor have no choice but to go back to the castle, as Merida found the answer to turn Eleanor from bear to back to human. As they break in, and Merida tells everyone where Eleanor is at with the story, while Eleanor goes upstairs quietly. While Eleanor wants to break tradition with the princes, and after making her point, she gets everyone to celebrate as Eleanor goes upstairs and with Merida, and Fergus realizes Eleanor is missing, as she hurts Merida and Fergus as a bear, and Eleanor runs out of the castle after realizing she's not safe in there, as Merida realizes her father, is going to kill his wife like a bear. And the boys go after the maid, as they're bear cubs, and they get the key from the maid that always gets scared of bears, even the tiny ones, which is kind of funny. And she escapes to go after Eleanor. And this climax is so far very typical of an animated family film, which features a princess. Merida finds Fergus to protect her mother, and has the boys protecting her, as well as the bear prince, attacking everyone as it's stronger than everyone, and Eleanor fights back with it as the bear prince dies, and the second sunrise almost comes in, and Eleanor is almost a bear forever, and Merida admits it was her fault to begin with, and Eleanor is human again. How did that happen? And they reunite as a family again, as the boys are back to being human again. How did that happen? I don't know. As they become a family again, as the climax wasn't as thrilling as I remembered it to be, this is probably the weakest Pixar film I like, in my opinion. The after credits scene with the crow delivering all the items, calling the guard a bird brain, was pretty clever, and maybe the best scene in the whole movie, in my opinion. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 5.4 out of 10. The plot is very familiar, as how many times am I going to see a family film with the same story, kind of like this, as it gets old real fast. I do like Merida, Fergus, and the boys as characters, and the movie's animation is very pretty, but unfortunately it's not good enough to make a good movie, as it's a fine movie. And I'll give Pixar credit for doing its take on a princess movie, but come on, how many times have I seen Disney do a princess movie? As I've got to say, a lot of times the after credits scene in this is the best scene in the whole movie, in my opinion, as this is a mild recommendation. I just wish it was better as a movie. It's almost like this. the more I watch this movie, the less I like it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just gonna leave it there. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for this review, and until then, curse this dress.